28-year veteran of the U.S. Army who previously served as the senior advisor to the U.S. Secretary of Defense. In today's interview, I sit down with the Colonel and discuss in what my opinion is one of the gravest violations of human rights and lack of humanity the world has seen in recent years. What's unfolding right now in Gaza is unprecedented. Just last week, our Secretary of State Antony Blinken admitted to the world that for the first time in history, an entire population has been reduced to starvation levels, and every single person in Gaza is in need of humanitarian aid. And today,
I don't know if you guys have followed this prior, but this was happening in Yemen way before we were even involved with Ukraine. This has been going on for a while. Now that things have escalated after October 7th, and now, Israel's invaded and everyone's having a grand old time, now you're starting to see who really cares about humanity and who cares about just making money. And with Colonel Douglas, it gives you some insight and an opening of how the world actually is going in a direction they want compared to us forming our own direction.
In today's interview, we discuss the incredible leverage the Israeli lobby holds over U.S. politicians, how the United States government is blinded by its own double standard, and why this war just might be the costliest war for the future of the United States.
Mind you, they're also talking about trying to make it biblical by slaughtering a red calf, which is the same thing they did in biblical time. I feel like we're just on the brink of going back to tribal thinking, and instead of getting to the point of progression and being able to resolute things with conversation, dialogue, and trade, it's like we're still going back to war just to see who has the biggest,
Let's dive in.
I want to switch topics now to something you've just briefly touched on, and that is, Israel right now. Because what's interesting is the United States foreign policy seems to be contradicting itself. On one hand, we want to, try Vladimir Putin for war crimes. We want to say that everything that Russia is doing is bad. But on the flip side, America is supporting an occupation, in Palestine. We are sending an endless amount of weapons and ammunition, billions of dollars to Israel. Netanyahu controls a tremendous amount of power inside the United States. Some would argue that even more power than the president, the way that he dictates the Israeli lobby. I want to shift and get your thoughts on.
I also believe lobbying is literally legal corruption, because you're literally like, hey, I don't want to pay my workers $20 an hour. I'll donate $2.5 million to your campaign if you make sure that doesn't happen. And then they're like, oh, okay. And then it's like, it needs to be cut. Lobbying needs to be taken out. I think politicians should have a cap, $5 million. See what you do with that for a whole campaign, like this whole endless money where people are donating hundreds of millions of dollars, which could be used in the States or even to help other people, to help other countries. It's ridiculous that we're giving it to politicians that don't even care if half the population is unfed, undying. As long as they get a paycheck, they don't care.
This war, the other war that the United States is certainly involved in, because Israel is, heavily involved in this attack in Gaza, but it's the United States that is supporting that. So, Colonel, let me know your thoughts on the Israel-Gaza conflict as of today.
Well, setting aside whether or not the attack on 7 October was a genuine surprise to the Israelis, or somewhere along the line someone made a decision at high levels to let it happen, is beyond the scope of our discussion, because I don't know.
Right.
The thought of letting someone give the green light to just have all those people, young people, murdered just because they wanted to start a war is horrendous in its own mindset due to the fact that so many people died and suffered for what? The enjoyment of one person's greed?
I have visited the outskirts of Gaza. I saw the security systems there. My impression was that it was expertly secured.
Right.
The notion that there could have been a surprise is